Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. I'm your host, Cyril, Gerald-Quinn, on this 7th of May, 2020. Hope everybody out there is being safe, listening to the health experts and the doctors and not the politicians. But anyway, we are continuing our look at Chicago Bulls playoff classics. Today, we are going to look back at Game 5 of the 1997 NBA Finals, the flu game. A very, I'm going to say controversial game, but a game that sticks out, especially the second time around, as the Bulls are trying to repeat with on the back end of Michael Jordan's career, where they go 3 straight championships. Of course, they're coming off a season where they broke the records and went 72-10, rolled through the playoffs for the most part in '96, and they go through a regular season at almost just as good as they were the previous year. They're 69-13 in 1997. They almost won 70 games, lost a game at home late to Indiana in April. It might have been like the last weekend of the season. I remember the game because the Bulls were actually – it was funny because like that game, it was a game where you thought the Bulls were – I'm not going to say not trying to win. It seemed like they were trying to rest and get people ready for the playoffs. But then the game was close enough to a point to where it was like, oh, we can actually win this. And they tried their hardest to win the game, especially in the fourth quarter. Indiana had a big lead. The Bulls almost came back, but Indiana held on. That was, of course, in 1997. Indiana held on and won the game, and to prevent the Bulls from being the first and only team in NBA history to win 70 games going back-to-back years. But anyway, they're 69-13. This playoff run, they would end up going 15-4 en route to a championship in '97, of course. But by far, throughout the course of this playoffs, the '97 playoffs, this Utah matchup was their toughest matchup, was their toughest series. Utah was coming in at 64-18. For the most part, had rolled through the Western Conference playoffs. Had a tough series versus Houston. It was 2-2. Of course, Game 6 in Houston, John Stockton hits the clutch 3 to send Utah to the championship, to the finals for the first time in their franchise's history. This is Stockton and Malone's first finals appearance. Malone and Stockton. Malone is the MVP this year. Was the MVP this year, which he should not have been. He shouldn't have beat out Jordan for MVP that year. But it was probably the first time that we had a narrative MVP award winner. Like, I think Jackie McMullen wrote a column in Sports Illustrated that year saying basically, why couldn't Karl Malone be the MVP? And that kind of got the narrative rolling of, hey, Karl Malone's never won an MVP. He's been a great player for years, even though Jordan clearly was the best player in the league, and even though Jordan was on a team that won 69 games. That MVP has not aged well, to say the least. That Karl Malone MVP in 1997 has not aged well. I don't think either one of Karl Malone's MVPs have aged well, to be honest with you. I can make a real strong case. He won one in '97, won one in '99, the lockout shortened season. I can make a case that he didn't deserve either one of those MVPs. I can really make that case. But '97, Michael Jordan should have been the MVP. Probably make a stronger case for Karl Malone winning the following year when Utah had the best record. To be honest with you. But he wins the MVP this year. He won the MVP in '97. He's at the top. He's still a top 5 player at that point, or probably the second best player. This is 1997, probably the second best player in the world at this point. Shaq is in there. Robinson's on the down, is on the decline. Again, Kobe and those guys and whatnot, and McGrady and some of those guys were too young at that point. Peyton was on the come up. So yeah, I mean, the league was in a very interesting place as far as there was a transition coming as far as these younger players and these next generational players that were coming into their own Hardaway was coming. A guy like Penny Hardaway was coming off an injury, so he was about to hit a spot in his career to where he's about to fall off. Grant Hill was rolling at that point in his career, first team All NBA caliber player. But a lot of these games were we were in the midst of games that were just flat out ugly. I mean, I'm talking about in the 90s, in the mid to late 80s, mid to early 90s, in terms of these scores. Matter of fact, during this broadcast, you heard Bill Walton, and this broadcast that was Marv Albert, Bill Walton, and Matt Guokas. A good broadcast because I love Bill Walton for some of his commentary, or for Elias' commentary, but they were talking about the strategies as far as Chicago wanting to keep this game in the 80s and Utah wanting to get the game in the early 90s. Like that was the talk. And if you watch this game, as I did, this was a slow-paced game. This game was played at a pace at about like 87.5 or something. It was a very slow pace. It was a slow to a crawl, which clearly favored the Chicago Bulls. Now, coming into this game, this of course is the famous, or for some fans, the infamous flu game. So, give you some background on the story. Michael Jordan, the night before, orders some pizza. Now, apparently, it was late at night. No place to go, and Michael had the munchies. Apparently, he orders a pizza. Tim Grover, his longtime personal trainer, and has become a world NBA renowned trainer. Has trained all kinds of players. Dwayne Wade's trainer, has worked with some of the best players in the league. Tim Grover was Jordan's guy as a trainer. I mean, he got Jordan into the weights and things of that nature, and helped getting them ready for the Pistons over in the early 90s. So Grover was Jordan's guy. He's in his room. They ordered a pizza. Grover tells a story in this article, in a Bleacher Report article that I read a couple of days ago, that he had a bad feeling about the pizza. That 5 guys delivered this pizza. And I'm not talking 5 guys at the restaurant. I'm talking about 5 actual guys deliver the pizza. Jordan eats the pizza, and like a couple hours later, in the middle of the night, Jordan is keeled over in a fetal position. He's throwing up. Temperature skyrockets, and basically all hell breaks loose from that standpoint of Jordan physically. Now, that story came out years later. Initially, this whole flu thing stuck for a long time. That was a flu game. But according to Tim Grover, it was food poisoning. Now, we're talking Michael Jordan here, and we're talking about the most famous athlete in the world by far at that point in time in 1997, or throughout the mid 90s, just throughout the mid 90s. I mean, Jordan is he's at a stage in his career, even though he's at the latter part, on the back end of his career, he is still the most famous athlete in the world. He still had that kind of that sort of appeal, and it's remarkable to think that Michael Jordan, had to settle for eating takeout. Like, there was no personal chef, there was no they didn't plan ahead in terms of, all right, I'm gonna eat at 7:00, go to bed at 10 or 11, be up, eat breakfast. A lot of things come to mind. It's a very shaky story, and I honestly believe that they would have been better off leaving it as a flu game. Like, the whole ideal that they're trying to, that Grover and company are trying to come up with this conspiracy theory that Jordan was poisoned by someone in Utah, has not aged well, and they would have been better off just leaving it as he just had flu, and let us run with that, or let us just let that go. Just let that go into the ether. The food poison thing, I just didn't sound right to me. It just didn't make a lot of sense because I'm thinking like this is Michael Jordan. You couldn't get him like he waited this late to eat. Again, Jordan was a meticulous. I mean, Jordan was a workout fiend. Jordan was a guy who I know he was playing a lot of golf, smoking cigars, things of that nature, but Jordan was organized. Maybe not on a level of, say, Kobe Bryant being OCD, but still, I mean, Jordan was in tip-top shape. His conditioning, Jordan rarely got tired during games. At times, rarely got tired. He was able to play heavy minutes, especially in the playoffs. And you just wouldn't think, this story just didn't make too much sense to me, and probably would have been in the best interest of Michael Jordan. And if you're a part of Jordan, if you were a part of the Jordan camp, and the story not even to come out. But it did come out. It came out. Getting back to 1997 and leading into the game, that's all everybody's talking about. Jordan from start to finish. You had the cameras on him. He somewhat looked out of it. I'll be honest with you. If watching this game, if I were to turn the sound down, if I didn't know anything about the background story of this, I would not have been able to really tell that Michael Jordan was that sick. I'm just gonna be completely honest with you. Until the end of the game, where it got a little dramatic, and Jordan had to play up the theatrics, which is classic Jordan, playing it up, and we'll get to that. So you had that going on during the broadcast. Again, a fun broadcast because it was a perfect balance. I mean, Marv Albert is the greatest play-by-play basketball person, color basketball play-by-play guy in the history of the sport. Bill Walton is Bill Walton. Like there's never ever been a dull Bill Walton broadcast. And you had Matty Yukis kind of like, that calm, just going to give the straight basketball facts. The coaching aspect, even though he wasn't a very good coach, but it was a nice balance of a broadcast, and I thought it was an excellent broadcast during the course of the game. Utah comes in again 64-14-18. Utah went to the finals in back-to-back years. They go to the finals in 96, 97. They go to the finals in 98. Utah had a stretch. They had a 4-year stretch where they won from 95 to 98, where they won 60, 55, 64, and 62 games. And they really took advantage of a Western Conference that was not as potent as it was in, say, the early 2000s, the Tim Duncan, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal era. They're catching the Western Conference at a good time because Houston was on a decline. Olajuwon's older at this point. Barkley is on his way to being done, so they catch him at a good time. The Lakers were not ready. Kobe Bryant, again, at this point, is like 18 years old. Their second best player is like Nick Van Exel. Okay, even though they had a lot of talent, just wasn't quite ready to make that jump. Seattle is starting to decline. They take out Seattle starting to decline. Seattle's not the team that they were, of course, in 1996. Utah took them out. Not Utah they didn't face Seattle. Houston beat Seattle in the playoffs that year. But again, Seattle comes down after making the finals in 1996. So Utah really caught the Western Conference at a good time. San Antonio was not San Antonio at this point. Remember, this was the year they finished, like, they basically tanked and were able to get Tim Duncan the next year. His rookie season was 97, 98. So you look at the landscape of the Western Conference, it is perfect for Utah to make a run to the championship and to win a whole bunch of games, which they did. And they took advantage of it. Now, this is game 5. The series is tied at 2. Utah is coming off 2 straight victories. Game 4, John Stockton was tremendous. He makes the famous pass to the football pass to Karl Malone. Karl Malone lays it up. And Utah is coming into this game feeling good about themselves. They and again, that game 4 was a slugfest, to say the least. I mean, they won 78-73. Chicago had a late lead, but could not finish the game. Looked fatigued. They looked fatigued in that fourth quarter of that game 4. So Utah comes into this game feeling good about itself. Utah jumps out in this first quarter, 18-8, finishes the quarter at 29-16. Again, you had Chicago just looking in the first quarter, looking completely discombobulated. I mean, everybody outside Jordan looked lost in the game. Utah is, basically, Utah's getting contributions. Malone came out playing well. You had some of Utah's role players. Chris Morris came out with getting some baskets. And really, it took Chicago a full quarter to get into this game. It took them a full quarter to get into this game. Second quarter, Chicago locks in offensively, has the best quarter of either one of these teams would have over the course of this game. They scored 33 points. They start late in the quarter. They start posting up Pippen. They also take advantage of a dumb foul by Karl Malone in the second quarter, which he sits out the last 2 minutes of the second quarter. Jordan has a big half, 21 points. That had 21 points, and Utah's lead goes from a 13-point lead in the first quarter to a 4-point halftime lead. 4-point lead at the half. Again, Utah, you look at this game, and I'm going to get to why Utah lost this game, and it's kind of connecting with why Indiana lost to Chicago, would lose to Chicago the following year in the 98 Eastern Conference Finals in Game 7. Utah had a hard time just generating offense. And, you look at when Chicago's defense locked in, and like Chicago's defense in this game had one bad quarter. First quarter, they give up 29 points. After that, you look at the Utah scoring in the game, and they were struggling to get. I'm scrolling down here. Utah would end up scoring. Utah struggled to crack 20 points for the rest of the game, a quarter for the rest of the game. They were 29, 24, 19, and 16 over the course of the game. So they got progressively worse throughout the course of the game. They got progressively worse in terms of their offense. And, Chicago's defense at that point was by far the best in the league. Chicago's defense was a defense that could switch everything. You're talking about Jordan, Pippen, Harper, Rodman. So those 4 guys could switch everything. And those 4 guys, like three of those guys could play 3 positions. I mean, Scottie Pippen could play 4 positions. Dennis Rodman could probably guard 3 positions. Harper could guard 3 positions. All those guys were versatile defensive players. All of those guys could switch off everything. And look at the course of this game. They just completely took Utah out of his offense. Like they destroyed Utah's pick and roll. It was not a good matchup for Utah because Utah was better, the best pick and roll team ever Stockton, Malone pick and roll, maybe the greatest pick and roll of all time. But it didn't matter against a team like Chicago. It didn't matter because they could just switch everything, and those guys were as versatile in terms of Jordan, Pippen, Harper, to where they could switch everything, and they were athletic, and Utah was not athletic. So you could see why Utah came up small in both years against Chicago. It just was not a good. It was just not a good matchup. Physically, it just wasn't a good matchup. And I think against Chicago, that particular Chicago team, especially from '96 to '98, you kind of had to think outside the box with some of your schemes and things of that nature. I don't think you were just going to beat Chicago with a conventional offense or a system because they just would. That's how lethal they were defensively. Third quarter comes out, and Jordan clearly he only has 2 points in the third quarter. But there's no question to me that watching that he is pacing himself in that third quarter. And no, he didn't look sick, but you could tell he was walking on offense. He seemed I'm not gonna say he wasn't playing hard, but you could just look at the game, just tell that he's getting himself geared for that fourth quarter run. And Utah only added 1 point to his fourth quarter to his halftime lead. So it's 72-67 at the end of the third quarter. Chicago has gotten Scottie Pippen going in that third quarter with some post-ups, which Utah had no answer for when they decided to post up Pippen or even decided to post up Jordan. It was mainly Pippen in that third quarter. Malone picks up just a silly fourth foul in that third quarter. So he has to go sit. When Malone sat, Utah was horrible in this game. Just go look at the numbers, the plus minus numbers. And again, and here's why you talk about Stockton, and it's been coming up lately, the Stockton Isaiah comparison because of the dream team and Isaiah being kept on the team and Stockton being the lead point guard or the second point guard behind Magic on the team. There's no comparison. None between Isaiah and Stockton. Stockton and Malone in this game were 3 for 12 in the second half with 12 points. You needed a guy, if you're Utah, that could get you buckets. You needed a perimeter player that could get you buckets. Utah did not have that, and it cost them dearly in this game, in particular in the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter was a back and forth battle for the most part. It's 81-81 for about 2.5 minutes. We're stuck on 81. Jordan's having a big fourth quarter. He's 6 of 10. He ends up scoring 15 points, going 6 for 10. He's getting to the line. So 81-81. Stockton hits a big three to make it 84-81. To make it 84-81. Then we get to a point where the game is tied at 85. Now, this is a stretch that if you're a Utah fan and you want to turn off the podcast, I don't blame you, because this is for a team that was as buttoned up, as organized, as well coached, and who executed at the level of the Utah Jazz. This was a rough end of the game. It's 85-85. Jordan's at the line. He makes the first free throw to tie it. He misses the second free throw. He gets his own rebound. Somehow he gets his own rebound despite being at the free throw line. The ball bounces. He gets his own rebound. He gives the ball to Scottie Pippen. He didn't pass to Scottie Pippen, but he passes the ball. He gets it back, and for whatever reason, the Utah Jazz decide to rotate on Scottie Pippen and to double team him in the post and leave Michael Jordan wide open for a in rhythm 3-point shot, nothing but net, and Chicago goes up 88-85. Now, I watched that play a number of times, still trying to make sense of why, if you're Utah, you would ever in the still, I mean, even 20, this is what, 23 years ago, it's still remarkable to me why in God's name you would ever double team Scottie Pippen and leave Michael Jordan. Now, if you're talking about double teaming Michael Jordan, leaving Scottie Pippen for an open three, you live with that. But to double team Michael Jordan, to double team Scottie Pippen and leave Michael Jordan is one of the dumbest defensive rotations or defensive breakdowns that you will ever see. The only one I can think of that was worse, or that was on par, I can't even say it was worse, was when Detroit and Rasheed Wallace double teamed Ginobili on a drive on dribble penetration and left Robert Horry for a wide open three when Detroit was up by 2 in a game 5 at Detroit. That's the only one that I can think of, David, that was that bad of a defensive breakdown. It made zero sense. Stockton came on the rotation, but Stockton is 6'1", Jordan is 6'6". So that Stockton tried to challenge his shot. Jordan was clearly in rhythm, and it was the ball barely touched the net. Barely touched the net. Again, Jordan and Stockton in the second half were horrible. Again, 3 for 12 between them, 12 points. Utah's offense in the fourth quarter was non-existent. Utah scores 16 points in the fourth quarter. Now, 88-85, Utah comes down. To their credit, they get a quick basket to close the gap to 88-87. You still have time. 13 seconds left. Chicago inbounds the ball from the back court, and for whatever reason that again I can't make sense of other than just a brain fart. Karl Malone doesn't foul and allows. Not only does Chicago get the ball past half court, they end up getting a easy layup to make it 90-87, and you just like. Karl Malone's I'm just like Karl Malone, and Bill Walton is screaming, foul. Like, what are you doing? Bill Walton is all over this. For the life of me, I don't understand what Karl Malone was thinking by not fouling. I believe it was Pippen that he could have fouled. I believe it was Scottie Pippen that the ball that caught the inbounds ball pass, and he had to be there for a good 3 seconds, which is an eternity. Like, you only need 1 second to foul somebody if you're close, if you're in the same proximity on the NBA floor. You're down by 1. Both teams have missed free throws. I mean, the Chicago have missed a number of free throws. Utah missed free throws. So there's no guarantee that they're going to make their free throws. Even Jordan was missing free throws. Just, again, I don't know what Utah was doing. I don't understand what Utah was doing, what the mindset of what. I don't get it. I don't get it. So Chicago goes up 90-80, 90-87. Chicago fouls Utah. Stockton gets fouled. Instead of making the first and missing the second, Stockton misses the first free throw, makes the second to make it 90-88. And at that point, it was only like 0.9 seconds left. It was when he made the free throw, it was game, set, match. And Chicago would go on to win 90 to 88. Jordan, of course, finishes with 38 points, had 15 points in the fourth quarter, made two critical three-point shots. Again, the clincher, 88 at 85 all. Jordan finished with 38 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 15 in the fourth quarter. You had Karl Malone, 19 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. 13 of his 19 points came in the first half, 7 to 17 from the field. He was awful. This was a bad Karl Malone game. It's a bad Karl Malone game, to say the least. And this is, I'm going to go back to what I said about Isaiah Thomas versus John Stockton. It's no comparison. You put Isaiah Thomas on Utah, they're winning a championship. They would have won either in 97 or 98. You put prime Isaiah Thomas on the Utah Jazz because you needed, because you really think about it, Utah's role players actually played well. Ostertag had 13 points and 15 rebounds. Chris Morris had 11 points off the bench. So Utah's role in a game that was low scoring, you got what you wanted. If I'm telling you I'm getting double digits out of Chris Morris and I'm getting 13 and 15 from Greg Ostertag, I'm cool. At home, I'm going to take that. But this was a Karl Malone. This is why that when I ranked power forwards, I had to put Charles Barkley over Karl Malone. In the big games, when it counted the most, outside of a 39-point Game 5 victory that they would have, that Utah had against Chicago a year later in '98, Karl Malone came up small in these series against Chicago in the biggest of games. You know, he misses free throw. He missed key free throws in Game 1, a game that Utah easily could have won in this series. They end up losing on a Jordan shot at the buzzer. And in this game, he was a non-factor in the fourth quarter. I mean, he was a absolute non. They could barely even get him the ball. He was taking these crazy jump shots. Again, you need someone that can get buckets because Chicago takes you out of your conventional offense. You need someone you need a Kobe Bryant, Kevin Durant that can just get buckets when the defense is collapsed, that can make tough shots. You need to be, against that Chicago defense, you need to be outside the box with your offense. And you needed someone that could score in the fourth quarter. And Indiana didn't have that. Utah did not have that. Even Byron Russell had some big threes. I think Byron Russell had like 14. I want to say Byron Russell had, look here. Yeah, Byron Russell had 11.7 rebounds. But again, Byron Russell has to guard John. He has to guard. Byron Russell has to guard Jordan, so he's not going to score a lot having to guard Michael Jordan. Not a good game for Jeff Hornacek. Only 7 points. He was awful in this game. A lot of some fun individual matchups to watch that were funny. The late Bison Dele versus Karl Malone was funny. Stockton and Steve Kerr going at it, getting physical. Apparently, Phil Jackson challenged Steve Kerr's manhood from Game 4, saying Stockton was pushing him around, and Steve Kerr took exception to that and basically was dragged Stockton to the floor in one play. So that was fun to watch. Listen, the Jordan performance, again, it was a great performance. He made all the big shots. How sick he was, I don't know. I can't sit up here and say that just when you go back and watch the Knicks Lakers, I think it was 73, the Willis Reed game. Willis Reed is hurt. He's limping. He scores the first 4 points. And actually played like 20 minutes in that game. But you clearly, that's the game where Walt Clyde Frazier had like 36 and 19. and destroyed Jerry West in Game 7 against Wilt and Jerry West. But you know that Willis Reed is hurt. The Isaiah Thomas game 6 in '88, the ankle, he twists his ankle on one leg, scores 25 points in the third quarter of that game, goes crazy, has like 40, end up with like 47, something like that. You know Isaiah Thomas is hurt. You know he's playing on one leg, one ankle. There's no two ways about it. This game, I don't think I'm not going to say Michael Jordan would ever fake an injury, but I think this performance, as far as flu game, was overblown a bit. It really was. It was a little bit overblown. Jordan hits the shot to go up 85, 88, 85, and Scottie Pippen carries him to the bench, arm around him, and Jordan just goes into this mode right here. Which, by the way, throughout the course of the game, he straight face, was in a full ladder of sweat, just focused. And like I said, you would not have been able to tell that he was sick. Once he hits that shot, he plays up to theatrics and what have you. And again, he made the big shot, made the big plays, and saved Chicago in that fourth quarter. Pippen had some nice post-ups in the third quarter, had a big, nice third quarter. And really, that really changed the complexion offensively for Chicago when they started posting Pippen up. Utah offensively was non-existent in the second half. Utah, the fourth quarter, again, Chicago completely takes Utah out of their offense. And again, that's what I'm saying. At that point, you need somebody to score the basketball. John Stockton was not a scorer. He was a guy who was at that point, for the most part, outside Magic Johnson, the best assist man in basketball. Now, he had more assists than Magic total, but in terms of per game, Magic Johnson averages more assists than anybody in the history of basketball per game. Look up the stats. But Stockton's job was to set everybody up. He would hit. He was a very good shooter, above average shooter. When he got open jump shots, he could make an open shot, open three-pointer. But that was it. Stockton was not going to get you 25 or 30 points in the game. And you needed a perimeter player to get 20 to 25 in this game to offset what Karl Malone didn't do, and to kind of stabilize what Michael Jordan did do in scoring 38 points. Michael Jordan outscored Karl Malone and John Stockton combined in this game, 38 to 32. Okay. If you're Utah, fourth quarter offense was a issue in this series. Games 5 and 6, they would lose game 6 as well. And back in Chicago, Utah scored 16 points in the fourth quarter also in that game. This is a game that, if you're a Utah fan, that you'll be kicking yourselves forever, because I'm telling you right now, in doing these last two Chicago classics, these 97 and 98 Chicago teams were beatable. They were absolutely beatable. 96, they were unbeatable. The first three championships, those teams were basically unbeatable. These last two Chicago teams were absolutely were ripe for the picking. Absolutely ripe for the picking. And again, Karl Malone coming up small when it counted the most. You have game 5 in your building. And I like what Bill Walton said. Bill Walton said, Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman was not good in this game. And then, Dennis Rodman, the last two championship runs, 97, 98, wasn't good, to be honest with you. He was not good. Matter of fact, there was talk during the broadcast when they were talking about who would be back for next year for 98, that there was talk, the consensus was that Rodman would not be back. And there were times where where Bison Daly was on the floor, and Chicago looked like they were a better team with Bison Daly on the floor instead of Rodman. Now I know that they had some lineups where they had Rodman and Bison Daly, but my overall point is Rodman was not good. Was not good in this series. It wasn't good in this game. So Karl Malone going up against Bison Daly and Dennis Rodman, who he should have been destroying those dudes. Should have been killing those dudes. It's not like you're going up against. Think about the power forwards that Tim Duncan and had to go up against in his prime. Kevin Durant, Kevin Garnett, Rasheed Wallace, Antonio McDyess, Chris Webber, Dirk Nowitzki. So, to me, I look at how Karl Malone played against the Bulls versus how, say, Charles Barkley played against the Bulls. It's not a comparison. It really is not a comparison. And Charles Barkley doesn't have a Hall of Fame point guard. Well, I mean, Kevin Johnson and John Stockton, it's not a big difference. Because I like Kevin Johnson, but still, you rather have John Stockton than Kevin Johnson. So that was a game that Utah will be kicking themselves for a long time. And that, you really look back on it now, that was as close that Utah would ever come to winning a championship. A year later, they were down 3-1 to Chicago. They came back, won Game 5, but lost Game 6, of course, with the famous shot, the post. And we're going to do that game, by the way. That'll probably be the last game we do, Game 6, 98 finals. But 2-2, fourth quarter lead, 13-point lead in your building, series tied at 2. Utah would never come closer to winning a championship. And to me, I got to look at the fact that they just did not have that perimeter player that could get buckets. That's to me the single and between that and Karl Malone's coming up short, those are the two biggest reasons why Utah could not get over the hump against the Chicago team that was ripe for the picking in '97 as well as '98. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Real Deal podcast. Enjoy the rest of your day. I will see you next time. I'm out.